I first started covering Brookfield Asset Management when it spun off from Brookfield Corporation in December of 2022. I also told my YouTube channel that I was buying as much BAM as I possibly could right after the spinoff, as I believed the stock was the best dividend growth stock in the market and was extremely cheap. Since then, the stock has more than doubled. However, I did exit my BAM position and put the money into BN instead, as I believe BN is offering significantly more value. BAM is still a stock that I follow though, in case it sells for an attractive price again in the future. The company also just reported its earnings, and in today's video, I want to go through the report with you and share my thoughts on the business and the stock now. Alright, so as always, I went through Brookfield Asset Management's fourth quarter earnings results and I took screenshots of all of the highlights that I found. So right away, this says 2024 was another strong year for the business. We raised over $135 billion of capital, including a record $29 billion of organic fundraising in the fourth quarter. This fundraising momentum, alongside annual capital deployments of $48 billion, drove year-over-year earnings growth of 18% for our fee-bearing capital and 17% for our fourth quarter fee-related earnings. 2025 is shaping up to be yet another record year for us. This positive outlook and our strong financial position enabled us to raise our quarterly dividend by 15%. So it sounds like Brookfield Asset Management had a fantastic 2024 and a fantastic fourth quarter. Again, for the fourth quarter, fee-bearing capital is up 18% year over year, and fee-related earnings did grow by 17%. Now, the reason that I like this is because Brookfield Asset Management put out a 5-year projection where they said that they are going to grow earnings at 18% annually out to 2029. And the company is now accelerating its earnings and meeting this compounded annual growth rate. So again, I think that this is a good thing to see, and this is what I was waiting for from BAM. Now moving on to the next screenshot, this one just shows us that BAM did distributable earnings of about $650 million in the fourth quarter, and the distributable earnings per share for the fourth quarter was 40 cents. So on an annualized basis, BAM is now doing about $1.60 in earnings per share. And keep this number in mind because we are going to be using it when we value the stock later on in this video. Moving on, this next screenshot discusses the company's fundraising for the fourth quarter. And here they show us that in renewable power, they raised $4.2 billion of capital. In infrastructure, they raised $2.5 billion. In private equity, they raised $1.8 billion. In real estate, they raised $700 million. And in credit, they raised approximately $20 billion of capital. So the credit segment of the business is where a lot of the new capital is coming from, and also where a lot of Brookfield Asset Management's growth is coming from as well. Moving on, this next screenshot shows us that BAM did $1.2 billion in fee revenue for the fourth quarter, which is up 12%. However, once again, the company increased its fee-related earnings by 17%, and the reason that earnings grew faster than revenue is because the company's profit margins did expand slightly on a year-over-year basis. Now, what we can also see is that the private equity and infrastructure portions of BAM's business did see revenues basically be flat or decline slightly year over year. So these two segments of the business seem like they have not seen a lot of growth, at least for BAM on a year over year basis. However, the renewable power and transition, credit, and real estate segments did see pretty strong growth. Now, if we take a look at the last 12 months, or essentially 2024, we can see that credit alone generated $103 billion of new capital being raised. And this is the vast majority of where Brookfield is getting its new capital from now. The renewable power and transition segment saw fundraising of $13.4 billion, and that was the next segment. So there is a massive gap between renewable power and transition and credit. So this is where a large portion of Brookfield's growth is actually coming from now, is their credit segment, which does have Oaktree and their insurance business. This next slide shows us that Brookfield Asset Management's carry eligible capital has doubled since it was spun off in the public markets. And in the most recent quarter, they now have $131 billion of carry eligible capital. Brookfield also says here that carry eligible capital increases future earnings potential as BAM gets a portion of the profits that are generated on the carry eligible capital. So essentially, as Brookfield Asset Management's carry eligible capital grows, then their future earnings potential also grows as the profits are taken and realized on this capital. Then they show us a slide of their target carried interest. And here they say, target carried interest reflects our estimate of the carried interest earned on a straight line basis over the life of the fund, assuming the target returns are achieved. And here they show us that the annualized carried interest after expenses is now $965 million. This is growing extremely quickly, And again, this is essentially future earnings. This is not earnings for the business today, but on an annualized basis, when these earnings are realized, they're sitting at about 965 million now. Now, what I also did is I went and took a look at Brookfield Asset Management's two main competitors, which are Apollo Asset Management and KKR. And we're taking a look at Apollo's most recent quarterly results. And here they say, record quarterly and annual fee-related earnings of 554 million and $2.1 billion. This means that Apollo grew its fee-related earnings by 20% year over year for the fourth quarter. Apollo also says total AUM of 751 billion benefited from inflows of 33 billion in the fourth quarter and 152 billion in 2024, driving a 15% increase year over year. So in the fourth quarter, Apollo saw its fee-related earnings grow slightly faster than Brookfield, and it also sounds like it had a better year for fundraising, with $33 billion raised in the fourth quarter and 152 billion raised in 2024. So their metrics here are slightly better than Brookfield's in the fourth quarter. Now, if we move on to KKR, here they say fee-related earnings of 843 million in the quarter, up 25% year over year. Assets under management of 638 billion, up 15% year over year. Fee-paying assets under management of 512 billion, up 15%. New capital raised of 27 billion and 114 billion for the year, and capital invested of 23 billion in the quarter and $84 billion for the year. So KKR's fee-related earnings did grow quite a bit quicker than both Apollo and BAM. However, BAM's AUM is much larger and it seems like it is growing faster. And then their fee-paying assets under management also seems like it is growing quicker. And the new capital raised over at BAM is slightly better than KKR as well. But in general, KKR, Apollo, and BAM all seem to be performing quite well. And I like to see that the overall sector is growing pretty much in line with each other. There are a slight difference in growth rates and net capital that is being raised, but overall, a lot of capital is being attracted to these three businesses and the asset managers in general. So now let's head over to Stock Unlock, and I want to show you guys some of Brookfield Asset Management's KPIs here that we have in the platform. So here we're taking a look at Brookfield Asset Management's infrastructure fee-bearing capital, renewable fee-bearing capital, private equity, real estate, and credit and other fee-bearing capital. And we're going to take a look at the growth rates of these different business segments over the past 5 years. And here we can see that the credit segment is by far growing the fastest at a 22% compounded annual growth rate, and it's also the largest segment by far, sitting at $244 billion of capital in the most recent quarter. The next largest segment is the infrastructure segment, sitting at $97 billion of capital and growing at 11.61% annually. So again, the credit portion of Brookfield's business is exploding, it's massive, and it's growing extremely quickly. And I think that this chart right here really highlights that. This next chart is Brookfield Asset Management's total AUM. And we can see that it has been growing at about 15% annually. And in the most recent quarter, it has now officially passed $1 trillion. So the company does have over $1 trillion in AUM now, and it is continuing to grow well. Now, this next chart is Brookfield Asset Management's total AUM, or assets under management. And we're taking a look all the way back at 2012. And we can see that in 2012, they had 181.4 billion of AUM. And now in 2024, they finished off the year with over $1 trillion in AUM. This is a compounded annual growth rate to AUM of 15.3% over the past 12 years. And we can see that it does not look like this is slowing down, and the company is continuing to generate more and more AUM. All right, now let's take a look at the fee-related earnings growth on a quarterly basis. So here we can see in the first quarter of 2023, fee-related earnings were only 371 million, and we can see that they have been growing very well in 2024, and it looks like growth has actually been accelerating. In the most recent quarter, the company has now generated $677 million of fee-related earnings. And if we take a look on a trailing 12 months basis, we can also see that this is hitting an all-time high of $2.46 billion now. And Brookfield Asset Management has been growing its fee-related earnings at a compounded annual growth rate of 10.4% since 2021, which is good to see. And it does seem like BAM is also expecting this number to continue accelerating because, again, their 5-year projection out to 2029 is to grow FRE by 18% annually. They did achieve that in the most recent quarter, so I am expecting that level of growth to continue over the next year and really over the next 4 years now. So now let's talk about BAM's valuation today. And we can see that the stock is currently trading for $55.12. And we also saw that on an annualized basis, they're now doing about $1.60 in earnings per share. And here we can see that BAM is now trading for 34.5 times earnings today. Now, this is on the more expensive end, in my opinion. And this is why I exited my position and moved the money over into Brookfield Corporation instead. I simply think that BN is trading for a much better price, and I have continued to buy BN shares despite that stock selling for all-time highs. So right now, I'm not currently interested in BAM because I think a 34 multiple for a business growing at 18% annually is a pretty high price to pay. And I actually think that you can find a lot more value in the market elsewhere right now. And don't get me wrong, I do think that BAM is an incredibly high quality business. Again, I just think that there is more value in the market elsewhere. So let me explain why I think that BN is a more attractive stock today. And I will also be doing a full in-depth video on Brookfield Corporation's earnings after they report tomorrow morning. So make sure to stay tuned and turn on notifications to see that video as well. But Brookfield Corporation, the BN ticker, owns 73% of Brookfield Asset Management today. Now, if we take a look, Brookfield Asset Management's market cap is $91 billion in the market today, which means that Brookfield Corporation, BN, its ownership of BAM is worth $66.4 billion in the market today. That's a very simple calculation that anyone can go and do. Now, if we head over to Brookfield Corporation, we can see that its market cap is $88.5 billion today. So if we take Brookfield Corporation's market cap of 88.5 and we subtract its ownership of Brookfield's asset management, which is $66.4 billion, then this means that the rest of Brookfield Corporation is only trading for $22 billion in the stock market today. So now let's go and take a look at Brookfield Corporation's other assets as of last quarter. And in the red box right here, this is all of Brookfield Corporation's other assets. BAM is just one asset that it owns at the top here, but Brookfield Corporation also has direct investments of $11 billion, a $22 billion insurance business, $8.7 billion worth of BEP shares, $7.4 billion worth of BIP shares, $3.2 billion worth of BBU shares, and a $24 billion real estate portfolio. Combined, all of these assets are worth $54 billion, and these assets produce over $3 billion in annual cash flow. And again, the market is currently valuing all of these assets on your screen right now at only $22 billion. And I mean, BN's ownership of BAM alone is worth 75% of BN's market cap today. That is absolutely insane. So every way that I look at BN right now, I still do believe that it is the much better investment. And again, that is why I sold off my BAM and put it into BN instead. I simply think that BN is offering a significant amount more value and that BN is actually still undervalued in the market. Now, as I said, I will be doing a full video on BN's earnings tomorrow when they are released. So if you do want to see that video, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you're actually notified when the video drops. But that's going to wrap up the video for today. If you did enjoy the video, then as always, please remember to leave a like on it. And thank you so much for tuning in. I truly do appreciate it. And I really hope to see you all again tomorrow in my BN video.